I was born in a house where silence spoke louder than words, and hunger was something we learned to ignore. My name is Millie, and for most of my childhood, I believed that life had already decided my worth. We lived in a small, broken house at the edge of town. The roof leaked during the rain, and the walls carried the weight of years we could never escape. My mother worked endlessly, her hands rough from labor, her smile tired but never gone. She used to say, "We may not have much, but we have dignity." Back then, I didn't understand what that meant, because dignity doesn't fill an empty stomach. At school, I was the girl people looked past. My clothes were old, my shoes worn out, and my lunchbox often empty. I learned early how to sit quietly, how to avoid eye contact, how to make myself invisible. But deep inside, there was something burning, a quiet voice that refused to accept this life. I remember one day standing outside a large house while delivering groceries to earn a few coins. The gates were tall, the garden perfect, and through the window I saw a girl my age laughing freely. That moment stayed with me, not because I was jealous, but because I realized something. She wasn't better than me. She was just given more. And that night, as I lay on my thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, I made a promise to myself. I will change my life. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew I couldn't stay the same. Years passed, and I worked harder than anyone around me. I studied under streetlights when electricity failed. I skipped meals to save money for books. I said no to distractions, no to comfort, no to anything that didn't move me forward. And slowly, things began to change. Opportunities came. Doors opened. For the first time, life felt like it was listening to me. But what I didn't know that day was that success doesn't just attract opportunities. It also attracts people who don't always wish you well. When I finally stepped into a better life, I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. Success brought me into circles I had never imagined before. People with polished smiles, expensive clothes, and words that sounded kind, but felt hollow. That's where I met her, Sophia. She was everything I wasn't, confident, charming, and effortlessly admired. She took interest in me almost instantly. "You're different," she once said with a soft smile. "I like that." At first, I was grateful. She introduced me to people, helped me navigate spaces I didn't understand, and stood by me when I felt out of place. I trusted her, more than I should have. Because for someone who had grown up with nothing, trust felt like a luxury, and I held on to it tightly. We became close. I shared my story, my struggles, my dreams. She listened, always with that same gentle expression. But what I didn't see was what she was taking from me in return. It started small. Ideas I mentioned casually would appear in her conversations, her plans, her projects. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it's just coincidence. But then it happened again, and again, until one day, everything shattered. I walked into a meeting, a big one, the kind I had worked years for. And there she was, standing at the front of the room, presenting my idea, my work, my vision. Every word she spoke felt like a piece of me being taken away. I sat there in silence, my hands trembling, my heart breaking in ways I didn't know were possible. When the room filled with applause, she looked at me and smiled. Not kindly, not gratefully, but knowingly. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't an accident. It was betrayal. Deep, calculated, and intentional. Later, I confronted her. "How could you do this?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. She tilted her head slightly, her expression calm. "You should be grateful," she said softly. "Without me, no one would even listen to you." Those words, they didn't just hurt. They exposed something. The way she saw me. Small, replaceable, insignificant. And for a moment, I almost believed her. I went home that night feeling completely broken. Everything I had built felt like it was slipping away. The trust I gave so freely, used against me. But somewhere in that pain, something changed. I stopped crying, and I started thinking. Because this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. Pain has a strange way of shaping you. It either breaks you completely, or it rebuilds you into someone stronger. And this time, I chose strength. I didn't confront her again. I didn't argue. I didn't try to prove her wrong in words. Instead, I worked. Quietly, strategically, patiently. I gathered everything, my drafts, my notes, my original timelines, every piece of evidence that showed where those ideas truly came from. I reached out to people who mattered, not with anger, but with clarity. I told my story, not as a victim, but as someone who knew her worth. At first, there was doubt, whispers, questions. But truth has a way of rising, no matter how deeply it's buried. And slowly, everything began to shift. The same people who once applauded her started asking questions. The same rooms that once welcomed her began to close their doors. And one day, she stood where I once did, silent, exposed, alone. I saw her again, but this time she didn't smile. She looked at me with something I had never seen before: regret. But by then, it didn't matter anymore. Because revenge, I learned, isn't about destroying someone else. It's about rebuilding yourself so completely that their actions no longer define you. I didn't need to bring her down. She did that on her own. And me? I kept rising. Not because of what she did, but in spite of it. Today, I look back at that girl who once stood outside someone else's window, wondering if she would ever belong in a better world. And I smile. Because she didn't just enter that world. She earned her place in it. The hard way. The honest way. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's this. Not everyone who walks beside you is there to support you. Some are watching. Some are waiting. And some are learning how to take from you. But your strength, your truth, your resilience, those are things no one can steal. So never stop building yourself. Because in the end, that's the greatest victory of all. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been betrayed by those closest to you, know that you are stronger than the pain. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And remember, keep blooming. If you like my story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it.